the small town of St. Genevieve, the historic homes are an important part of the community. The rich French colonial history represented in these homes keeps the community beating with a sense of the past and a path for the future. For example, the revenue from tourists visiting historic homes represents 10% of the town's overall tourism income. In addition, the rarity of these homes throughout the country makes them even more important and valuable to St. Genevieve and for the preservation of the history of our entire country.
Why are historic homes so important nationwide? I think to tell the story of our history, history of our country. If we don't have any history, we don't have any future. And so I feel like it's an important part of everyone's life to know their history, to see how people lived, and if we didn't preserve our historic homes, we wouldn't know how that had happened. In fact, I often say I think every American citizen should have a trip to Washington, D.C. free of charge, just to get some idea of what our past was like.
It gives us such a clear picture of how people in the French colonial times lived, and some of the, how their furniture was different, and also how it was the same, the comforts that people like, the things that are important to us human beings, as warmth and food and shelter and all of those things. And they took pride in their homes.
I think historic houses are kind of a link to the past, and it's a way that you can have a tangible connection with people who have lived here before you. And you can determine a lot about people's culture by the kind of houses they built, how they lived in them. You can see what influences came into communities by the different styles of houses that are there. And you can just get a sense of what it was like to live in another time.
And why are they important is because when they're gone forever. And it's a part of our history that the world will be denied having access or knowledge of.
French colonial homes have a unique style of architecture, known as vertical log construction. There are less than 10 post and ground homes in the United States, and 3 of them exist in St. Genevieve.
We have a collection of homes in St. Genevieve that they simply do not exist anywhere else. We have 3 posts on tear homes. I think there's only 4 or 5 in the entire nation. And then we have a number of homes of more sophisticated vertical log construction, which is Patos or Soul House.
French colonial vertical log homes were built in 2 different styles, post on sill and post in ground. The post on sill homes have vertical logs that are placed into stone moldings that are positioned in the ground. The vertical logs are then placed evenly throughout the stone molding to protect the wood and also to make it sturdier. The post and ground homes have vertical logs inserted into trenches dug directly into the earth, which are later filled back in with dirt to fortify the logs. In all of these constructions, no metal nails or braces were used, showing that these French builders could build extremely sturdy buildings using only the resources they had available to them. In doing so, they invented a new architectural style, which is still treasured today.
We see the evolution of the vertical log as the people lived here. When they first built their homes, they built like 2-room cabins. When they found out how warm and humid it was, that's when they started adding their porches with the big overhangs to keep their houses cooler.
In these traditional homes, there are 3 primary types of joinery used. The first is a pointed wooden handle inserted into a slit between 2 parallel pieces of wood. The second is composed of 2 wooden cylinders inserted into specially cut holes into 2 overlapping pieces of wood. The last is made of a log with a thin end inserted through a hole in another log and secured in place by a rod. In St. Genevieve, the community's efforts to restore their historic homes has been supported and funded by grants given from both private groups and from the state of Missouri. The state's involvement has grown over the years, especially after the 1993 flood. They also contributed large sums to build the St. Genevieve Levee, which would greatly help protect the history of St. Genevieve in the future.
They're constantly getting matching grants and things like that, and I think the fact that people like Dick Gephardt, they really helped save our town. They helped us get the levee. That, in my mind, is some of the most important things to preserve it, and also by naming it a National Historic Landmark.
They also offer the tax credits, which has been the best thing that they've done, because we've had at least 4 buildings restored with the tax credits. They also come into our community and help educate people in preservation. About once a year, they send a person in to hold a public workshop, and they talk about various things like how to replace windows and doors and roofs, and how to take paint off of an old building.
Over the course of St. Genevieve's history, the preservation of historic homes has been funded by many different groups in the state of Missouri as well. The level of involvement has changed over the years, but one thing is certain. As long as these homes exist and are valued as they are today, there will always be someone willing to save and preserve St. Genevieve's history.